And Sister Benji, um, we forgot to say talk that when you said when we were doing the
Deconstruction.
yeah, remember that we were talking about that you said, oh, we shouldn't forget about the sister who
Okay.
let's see the I think we're live now.
Yes. And we're just still talking. It's all right. Um,
Yeah.
guys, thank you so much for joining me. This is Dr. Chantella Sherman. I'm here for the Acumen Group and Acumen Magazine to do another edition of Real Talk, and that's REEL. We're going to talk a little bit about different films and how to deconstruct them. And specifically today, we're dealing with the film Antebellum. I am here with the lovely Idanta from House of Kepler and the ever majestic and amazing Sister Benji. They're both joining me from Holland, from Amsterdam. And we're going to get into deconstructing antebellum immediately. If you guys have questions and you'd like to be a part of the dialogue and the conversation, please send emails or drop your questions into the comment sections and we'll navigate through those. The email address is acumenmagazine365@gmail.com. Again, acumenmagazine365@gmail.com. And we welcome any questions and comments that you may have. So, ladies, thank you first and foremost for joining me. It's always a pleasure to sit
Always.
down with the both of you.
Thank you for asking us.
Honor.
Thank you.
You're looking well. Everyone's good.
Oh,
Yes, we
good.
are.
All right. All right. So, first and foremost, um, how did you two receive Antebellum? What did you think? And please, guys, be clear. Um,
Uh,
I don't believe in the no spoilers rule because in order to deconstruct, you're going to get a little bit of
yeah.
the how this is pulled together, the themes, and the ending. All right, so you have to understand the ending in order to understand the beginning and everything else you see. So if you
Yeah.
haven't seen the film and you don't want spoilers, turn your systems off now and come back and watch this after you've seen the film. All right.
Right.
So again,
Yeah, that's
what did you
good.
guys think?
Oh, well, we were both really shocked when the movie started. And, just like you said, it's you really have to see, understand what's happening that's the understanding that you get in the end of the movie to know what's going on because, you're going to be seeing something and we're like, how come they dress so good? How
Mm-hmm.
come how come she's wearing a cross around her neck? So you're seeing a lot of things that are not consistent with the time that it's supposed to be playing in. And we also and that's something that Sister I said, and I really, really said, wow, that was a really very how should I say it, a very good way of deconstructing this movie because she actually said, look, we should be looking at all these movies that have been coming out over the years depicting slavery because you're going to be seeing things in this movie that refer to that time.
Absolutely.
Like you have a certain part where this I don't know if he's like a general or something or colonel or whatever. He's beating up Janelle and asking her to tell him her name. So we were like, oh, okay, no, this is Roots. This is Roots
Right.
right here. So there are a lot of things that are coming back in this movie that are other parts, that are so actually as I really see it, it's constructed out of different parts that we have seen before. And yeah, I thought it was a really um, there's a lot of black people crying in the beginning of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and there's another thing I really want I to tell you about it, and she said something, and I'm like, damn, she's so right. Please tell her about, please tell her about the things that you said about when white people are supposed to be so civilized and when they do certain things, That's your
Mhm.
approach right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, First of all, thank you for asking us. It's also a pleasure. We've been working together now because of Paulo Bina for more than a year, you know.
Yeah,
I've learned
yeah.
so much from you, and this is why I start watching. I mean, I before I met you, I watched differently, but because of your training or feedback or the many conversation we had, it's more when I look at a film now, it's more layered the way that I'm watching films now. Okay, I think that what Sister Benji is referring to, and it's also the work of Paulo Bina, The Good God White Man, is
Mhm.
in the first 10 minutes of this film, what you could see is the dynamic uh, good white and um, and especially strong white. So not even good, but strong, you know, like
Power. They
the
represent power.
power,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
yeah, it's the white dominance male, and then the yeah, soft, pity, crying
Right.
black, yeah,
Mhm.
and then um, at the same time you could see that even though, and this is what I've been seeing um, in different, let's say, slave movies, is that even though that the male dominance, the white male dominance, is actually doing like, you know, not uh
Whatever
like
evil.
really harsh
Yeah.
and
Whatever evil.
evil, let's say evil, it's still in a setting where it's not. You don't see them rape, fight, or do anything. You would always see it like a nice picture. When, especially when, even when they whip somebody, or you will never see it. You will only hear something, but you will never see they do something like similar with the stories we know. It's
Right.
always in a framework of um,
Civil. People being civil.
like civil.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Right.
when you look at it, you'll be like, okay, yeah,
Because you could see
the,
it, it's actually something that I said, and when I start, thinking about the movie, it's like, okay, this guy's burning her with a iron, but you
Mhm.
don't see it happen.
you don't see
It's
it happening.
after she will show to the next lady, the lady with the curly hair,
Mhm.
she will show it to her, but you will
But you
hear the
won't see the
sound.
action.
Right.
You
You
hear
won't
that?
never see in like
Mhm.
the slave movie, see that the
Hmm.
white person, the personage,
The
you never
aggressor.
see they do something really like that is
Something sinister that well, and I think that what
sinister
happens.
or yeah or rape or whatever. But in the
Because,
other side,
yeah,
the other
the black
bad
people.
movie where it's the other way around, you
Yeah.
would see black people do all kinds of, you know, horrible things to white
Right.
people.
Right. Right.
So what I could see that in this, even in that it's like a slave movie and it's like, okay, the white dominance, it's never negative. Like in if it was Dutch, I could really say this in 2 seconds.
No, I just, well,
Yeah.
this is the thing. I think that when you have these films, there's a rather visceral effect because emotionally, even though we're not immediately in that space, psychically you're picking up on this. So
Exactly.
you
Oh,
feel
yeah.
something in the pit of your stomach. So
Mhm.
the fact that you're hearing people scream and all of this, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, it's almost like saying, do I really need to see this? So one of the criticisms that a lot of people had when the film was first announced, one, people thought it was a horror movie.
Hmm.
And so, or it was something that was more akin to science fiction where you have someone that's kind of caught in a time loop.
Right.
And to some extent, I was kind of hoping it went that way. Um, and since it didn't, this was for me, it was less about the past than it was about the present, even though the past was where it was situated, right? And so when
Hmm.
you keep hearing things like, in at least three different scenes, you have Janelle Monáe's character saying things like, you know, they're stuck in the past, but we are the future.
Yeah, that's
okay.
I
And
heard
so,
that. That's
right.
what.
And so when you start thinking in terms of everything that we're talking now, all the things that I talk about historically, what I keep saying is history is not dead. History is a living, breathing thing because it's in the spirits of the people and the ancestors, and it's in the offspring. And so you have memory of things that you don't quite have memory of.
Yeah.
So there's another quote that she uses in the film, where she's saying, you know, we are our ancestors haunt our dreams.
Right.
To
Right.
see the future, to see where we are. And so because of that, you're trying to figure out, again, where is this film going? But, you know, even though they're using Black people, I think, as the transmitters of the information, they're actually talking, she's actually talking in many instances about white people. And it's the fact that you have recreators, you have white men who are still walking around in period garb. They're still walking around in old military uniforms, pretending to be soldiers of, you know, the Civil War. And
Yeah.
so, you know, again, initially I'm thrown off because you're saying antebellum. The term antebellum in and of itself means before the war.
Before the war.
So the fact that there's a war going on when you're watching this, you're going, wait a minute. If
What's
it's
going on?
antebellum means before the war.
Yeah.
But what you're seeing
Yeah.
is an actual war going on. So I think what the directors are trying to do with this, you know, they're playing subliminal games, and I get it. So if you believe in 2020, you're still in a war. White people are still in a war over white supremacy, and the language of the film was just so decadent and offensive at times, where you're like, okay, this isn't the language of that period. This is something we say now. You wouldn't hear of the term cracker used by a Black person at that time. So it's just
No
like
way.
something.
No.
That's why I kept saying something is off with this. And so you don't realize it's not that you're in a parallel universe.
You're in a parallel universe.
You're in 2020. You're in the present.
And I was saying to Sister I too that, you know, there's in any older slave movie, they will be talking about the N-word anytime, but they're talking about Negroes. I said to her, I said, they won't be saying that word. You know.
Yeah.
Something else that was really what we really saw, what really took a chord with us was that Gabourey Sibidi, I don't know if I say her name correct.
Yes.
You know, she was, for me, she went over a lot of boundaries in her behavior. As you know, I think that was something that I would have been more content if, you know, of course, you know, you could be talking about certain things, but it started going somewhere that I thought, why is she portraying that kind of woman? What is the need? You know, on the other hand, you don't know anything about her. You don't know what she's doing. The only thing that she's trying to do is look for a man, you know, and it doesn't matter what.
So do this, Sister Benji, do this. From the way I looked at this, especially when we're showing the present time, what looks to be the present time.
Right.
What you have are white people who are constantly saying, or the theme that Black people are out of their place. Black people are now in charge. They're speaking and saying things where they've taken on the persona of whiteness and white power. So how many times have you come across a white female that does exactly what Gabby's character did? She comes into a space and interrupts folks. She ignores people. She crosses conversation. She puts people out. You know, she comes in and says what she has to say. She's offensive in her authority. Okay, that is for me. That's a lot of white women that I come across, because it's just assumed that you have the authority to walk in and move in spaces like that. So for me, it kind of spoke to this whole theme of, you have someone, and that's why that white man was attracted to her. Of all the women that was sitting at that table, he looked at her and said, there's something that's attractive about this woman sitting at this table. And even then, she couldn't take the compliment of someone purchasing a drink for her. It was, this is what you need to do when you address me. And there are three of us here and you need to find out. It was just like, wow. But again, growing up in a space where it was extremely balanced as far as white, Black, Asian females, there was a certain level of authority that many white females that I grew up with just assumed. And by proxy, I assumed it as well. So if we're out together, it made sense for them to, you know, kind of go into a space and take over that space and talk to people and put them out and move them around and shift the atmosphere within the room. I thought Gabby's character was literally falling into that same space. If I'm a white person thinking, here's this big Black woman who in my mind, I'm still thinking should be over here flipping pancakes, okay? But not only am I attracted to her, but she's running things. So this woman, Gabby's character, was the leading authority on relationships in the nation. So she's at a conference, she's doing her thing. All of these women sitting there, and then the white woman that's there basically digresses. She pulls back when Gabby says, no, I got this. I'll tell them we're gonna move the table and I'm just gonna take the table I want. That was a very, that was a very white
thing.
Right, it was a very white, masculine, patriarchy, you know, type of move. And it was just like, okay, the fact that you gave this authority in film and celluloid to a Black woman, like I said, I think they were playing a lot of mind games with shifting authorities. And so, like I said, I had to watch this twice. So it was like when we did the rental, you know, I kind of went back and I looked and I kept thinking, yeah, this looks like something that my homegirl, you know, Kim would have done years ago. And then it's okay, I kind of get it, but it's so rare that you see it represented like this. And so, yeah, I just so that folks get an understanding. This film is about a very successful author who's traveling and she's, you know, going away from her family to do, you know, book tours and things like that. And she kind of gets trapped in what is an enslaved space. And it's almost like someone has transported her back in time, but she is still very much in the present. And so when we think in terms sometimes now of people saying, I would never be a slave, or I would have just run away, or you start to see in present day how enslavement and immobility function even when you're that close to the things that you know. And so there's certain themes within the film, like I said, that just kind of, they don't necessarily gel for me right now. This may be something that I have to watch 10 additional times to go, okay, I get it now, or I kind of see where they were going. And again, I think if they had done this, Sister Benji, the way you're talking about as an Octavia Butler type of deal, oh, it could have gone in all types of, you know, different directions. As it, as it was, I think it was more a horror story for the present day, you know.
Yeah, I wonder, because if they say that, excuse me, if they say that this is a horror movie, which I don't really see the horror. I wonder if the horror is that in the end she is taking revenge out of all these people, like the crazy woman that was in her room and this general, whatever, you know. So I wonder if that is the big one, because somewhere in the movie they said it's all about fear. And that's something that I really said, that's what it's all about. It's all about fear, trying to keep us worldwide in our place. And the fear is there that at a certain point, these reins are gonna get loose and people just gonna do what they want to do and what they need to do. You know, and you know, there was another part which really struck me, that this guy that he was attracted to this girl with the curls, and he didn't really know how to talk to her. And then in the end, when he met with her, is that he actually was the good guy, you know, he was a civil guy, but then he had to live up to his role as an aggressor, you know, as a predator, you know what I mean? So there are a lot of things in that movie that really, yeah, you have to think about them.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I have to say that after the first 10 minutes was only like white male dominance and black male and female,
Right.
how do you say, overgave,
Yeah,
um
they were
Oppression.
oppression, yeah, oppression,
the
and it was all
oppression.
crying, 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 and not be able to. And this is what I really don't like about these slave movies, is that uh, there's the unconscious putting you in your place, because there was a lot of rebellion, and there was a lot of, so what you see also in this picture and in this film really really well is that it's a perfect picture presented. There's perfect
Okay.
grass. People are walking perfectly. All the dresses and everything was perfect. Everything was perfect,
Yeah.
Hmm.
really. And even when in the beginning he shoots the sister, right? And Sister Benya were like, he wouldn't do that. That's money.
Exactly.
That's proper.
Exactly.
That's your. It's like
Exactly.
shooting your bank, or your couch, bank,
That's the
your
bank account
couch, or
going
your.
right
That's
there.
that's
Yeah.
ruining your property. That's like deafing, you
Exactly.
say in Dutch. You say he
If
would
they
never
would have
do that.
if they would
Right.
have done it, they would have done it in front of the other people,
Then it was
to
abuse.
incite
Exactly.
that fear,
Exactly.
So there were a lot of things in there that, because we were when we were just getting into the movie, and there's a lot of people just walking about, just
Yeah.
going in the place,
Hmm.
and
And being pretty and nice, and everybody
how
is
did,
in set. It was like
yeah,
a movie set. You see.
yeah,
Right.
This
aren't
Right.
was
these
the
people
first.
supposed to go to work or something? They
Exactly.
kill
and
it.
and what I is that you don't see nothing about, what do you say, the strength of the, we wouldn't be here if we were like, the
Yeah,
Swati, we wouldn't be here, so it's none
This is
of
the
that.
thing. This is something else that I think it was overlooked the first time I watched this, but it's about identity formation. So, Sister
Mm-hmm.
Benji, when you're talking about the young soldier who goes in and he's trying to be nice, but then he realizes my
Mm-hmm.
identity is connected to whatever it is that I have to do to this woman. All right.
right.
And so they've already said, oh, you won't make a great Confederate. You're terrible. Da, da, da. So he feels he has to go through this process of violating this woman or beating her up and roughing her up in order for him to have an identity that syncs up and lines up with his whiteness. All right. The other
Exactly.
thing that's pretty telling, because this is a white fantasy, I want to be real clear about this. The horror is
Mm-hmm.
that this is a fantasy for someone. So if in 2020 you can be kidnapped from doing lush and wonderful things and taken to a space where it's supposed to be a reenactment camp, and we have reenactment camps all over the country here. All right, people go out and they're supposed to be having battles and they reenact the battles. There's no real gunpowder in it or whatever, but these are expansive spaces where it's logical that you could have a pretend battle going on one part of this property, and then in the background of this property where no one is actually supposed to be, you have a functioning space where you kidnap Black folks and put them out there to work a field. The reality is, again, it's about the identity formation of the white people doing it. Why? Because you see they burned the crops. They're picking cotton, and it was like anyone on here, like I said, people are still picking cotton today. All right, picking cotton, you're hoeing cotton, you're chopping cotton. This is a process. So the fact that they were standing out there, you know, this little nilly picking, it was like, no, that's not how you pick cotton. Number one, you picking
No
something
way.
off, right?
No way.
You picking something off of here to goof around with for the mind screw. I don't want to use bad language here, but this is something. These are the mind games of the people who are sitting in full regalia and armed as overseers. That's not the way plantations worked. But it was like, okay, but you notice as they pulled the harvest up, the men were taking all the cotton and throwing it over
Yeah,
into an area and they were burning it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
cotton isn't king anymore. It's 2020. So the
right.
fact that you subliminally have to have Black people walking around you being subservient means that the frailty and fragility of whiteness is what's exposed in this film. And a lot of what we're seeing, I think, is overlooked when it's kind of reduced to, oh, it's a movie about slavery. And it was like, no, they didn't even really touch slavery, because the men who were using that platform, the men that were using that plantation, they weren't around during enslavement. So they were playing at being enslavers. And so I think my frustration with this whole thing was that from the start, from the time the film starts, you keep getting these little glimpses of the character Veronica, played by Janelle Monáe. You keep getting these little glimpses the same way you did in the film Get Out, where every Black person with a sixth sense and at least one ancestor that's still riding them is going, sister, go that way. Something is wrong. All right. I just kept thinking, are you not paying attention to anything? This is where I say, okay, I'm getting ready to check out this hotel because this is bothering me. Something is not sitting well with me. And so what bothered me so much, again, same thing with the film Get Out. And I understand that there's some crossover between some of the people who are involved in the writing, directing, or producing of Get Out and this particular film. And it's like, right, you know, if anything, the message I'm getting is Black people, pay attention. When do we get so aloof that we're not paying attention to stuff that literally makes you stop? When that little white girl got on the elevator with a doll that has a noose around her neck and she's dragging it.
Pulling it, yeah.
You're right. Literally, at that point, it would have been like, I don't even know where she came from, but I'm not getting on the elevator with her. All right. I just need to step off of here because this kid is spooking me out. All right.
Yeah.
Where did she get? As adults, the first thing you say when you see a child that age by themselves in what would have been a Louisiana hotel on her own was, yeah, where are your parents, sweetie? Are you okay? The reaction was none of that. It's, you know, she's in period clothing. So right off the bat, it was like, okay, am I seeing ghosts? And why is this child getting on this elevator with this black doll with a noose or a string around his neck and pulling it?
And pulling it on the ground.
Right, and pulling it right. So I'm thinking, okay, the fact that this is a child that's also involved in this grooming process of re-enslaving Black people. She's there when the women are brought in. She's there. What should we name the new people that are coming in? She's being indoctrinated into a system. All right. So my thing is, there again, before you even get to a point where Veronica is kidnapped and pushed into this other space, you're literally looking at this like you have a whole bunch of warning signs about where you are and who the people around you are. Somebody, this white woman saying, oh, the lipstick that you're wearing, it looks good on your skin tone. At that point, let's disconnect the call. Whatever it is you're selling, I'm not buying.
This is exactly what we said. Because even when she's like, oh, is that Kennedy? How do you know my daughter's name?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. Excuse me, who are you? How did you get my number? So that was something that we said, oh, okay, no.
This is not even right. This is never going to happen.
She's exceptionally rude to her. So, I mean, this is just flipping it and go, bop, bye.
She said, and you're so articulate. Okay.
Oh,
and the fact that, once again, even for propriety's sake, if we're in a space where we say we're in mixed company, all right, and you have to be your professional best, you may have taken that comment and said, okay, you would have at least given her a look, but you were in the privacy of your own home where you can say and do what you want. And so someone telling you, first of all, about your skin tone and this lipstick, and then saying, oh, and you are so articulate. It was like, okay, this is where I can officially curse you out. And I'm talking about get into it, get the gravel out of my throat and curse you out. Yeah. And it's like, and then, you know, and let me find out who you are and where you are. What do you get? The fact that the little kid is in the background and then she says, okay, and then she can be a playmate for my daughter. This is language that is enslavement language, but it's also Jim Crow language. It's also, so if you went back to something like The Color Purple, and you look at Oprah's character, who at this point you have Black people driving cars and they're looking good and they're looking fancy, and have a white woman come over and say, your kids are so clean, would you like to be my maid? Okay, immediately, Oprah's reaction in public, that's how she ended up getting cracked in the head, but her reaction is the correct reaction. All right. Don't put your hands on my kid and just, you know,
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
get to do that. So
Right.
the fact that Janelle Monáe's character had her reaction was,
This is
mm-mm.
exactly what I said, because she said, even if you're on this high level, you can have all the qualifications that you got. You can have all the big career. You can have everything, but you are
Still
still
a slave.
um,
That's it.
enslaved and still trained to
Yeah.
be
Be
so
a
kind, to
slave.
be so civil, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because we were like, you still talking to her?
Mm-hmm.
You could have hung up about 20 minutes ago, 20
Long
seconds.
time.
Exactly.
As soon as this conversation started, it could have very well ended. And so
Very
a lot, like I said, there were a lot of get out moments where it's just like, sis don't seem to be paying attention to much of anything. And I realized again that when people try and do these subliminal messages within the films, and they're trying to goad you in and kind of get you in, and you see this white woman enter her suite, which is the Jefferson suite, that wasn't lost on me. Okay.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
the fact that this white woman says, I handpicked every Black person that we chose to
Except
kidnap and
you.
put into this
Yeah.
space, except you. And my father specifically wanted you for himself. He wanted her basically as his comfort slave. All right. And
Right.
so, but the fact of the matter is, she was on television talking about, you know, intersectionality and white supremacy, and she
Mhm.
dropping Asada Shakur into the
Right.
mix. And
Right.
I'm just
Right.
thinking, all right, sis is on it. I got you. But as soon as
Mhm.
I heard that, and it's about revolution, language of revolution, and da 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 da, that white man saw that as an immediate and imposing threat. And that's
Right.
why he sent his daughter to get her. And
Yeah.
so it's like it
What
was
you said.
understood, right?
Yep.
That was the so for me, the larger subliminal message that the film was trying to send
Mm-hmm.
was that even today, they're after
What
you.
we said.
You know, and
Yeah.
I was just
Even
like, okay,
today, while
yeah,
things are changing, right?
right,
Yeah.
right.
Like,
Everywhere,
yeah.
and what they say, everywhere and
And
nowhere. That's
nowhere.
what he
We're
said.
everywhere and nowhere. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
but here's the thing, you've always been everywhere and nowhere. All right. So I
So,
didn't like the fact that was this overriding fear and anxiety that you're leaving
Yeah.
people with. And it was like, all right, well, once again, we wouldn't have gotten to this point had it not been for that intuition that says here, 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 and here. And again, the daughter makes the point. If it were not for my father's weaknesses, see, you can't have white supremacy if all you want to do is have sex with Black women. Okay, so you can't, right,
Okay.
with the right, and
I
so you
drop.
know, it's
that's what
uh
happened, because I always said, I said, look, I said, for all this white supremacy and all this, there's so much mixed people around. If this is what you've been talking to us about, how our men are so they are sexual predators and whatever, but you couldn't keep your zipper tight, so stop talking.
and it becomes, if you read things across the board. So if you read the notes, Rosa Parks, some of her diary and her journal entries were released to the public about 3 or 4 years ago. And
Mm-hmm.
within them, she talks about a time when a couple that she was babysitting for, trying to make extra money, they had a family friend come over when they knew that she would be there with that child by herself.
Oh my God.
And he basically told her, we can make this, we want to do one of two things. Like, either you're going to give it to me willingly and I can be your friend, or
All
I'm going
right.
to take it. And she was able to get out from under that by talking back to him the language of white supremacy and saying things to him like, aren't your white women good enough? Why would you want to contaminate yourself by touching me? You know, by her doing that, it got into his head. And basically, she said he starts shaking and he leaves out and he doesn't come back. She quit the job immediately. But it helped you understand that, what is this thing where you're inferior, we don't want you here, da da da, but you're literally, these are your sapphires and your comfort girls. And so it's like, that they don't want you. So this is a act of violence and an act of violation. So it's like, no, we wouldn't be here if you could keep your penis in your pants. Let's be real clear.
Exactly.
And so it's like, rape and this type of violation, and then you do it generationally, and you're teaching your sons and daughters, I want to keep saying, and your daughters, to do the same things. So if you're looking at this present day, and this is supposed to be a 2020, song that we're singing, and you have this white woman saying, I'm actively going through spaces and searching the internet, looking for Black people who are successful to basically knock them off their kilter and re-enslave them. It's like, okay, what are you telling me? That these white men are one thing, but this white woman is orchestrating this from behind the scenes.
Mm.
All right.
Yeah.
One of the most powerful people in the film is the person you overlook.
Mm-hmm.
She's facilitating all of this. And what she say, I handpicked each one of these people.
Yeah.
So she's tracking this woman's movement. She knows where she's going to do her speaking engagements. She's had someone bring flowers to her room. Even that was spooky. The front desk didn't call.
With cotton.
Right. The front desk didn't call.
With the cotton
Right.
flowers.
And then just little things. Why is this woman leaving her hair, pulling out pieces of her own hair and leaving it on the pillow of the bed? You use this woman's toilet, don't flush it, don't wipe your ass, excuse me, and pull your clothes up and keep moving. It was like, what you're doing is trying to violate the space in such a way where something is going on in your mind. There's a mental psychosis. There's something else that's going on with you. So I just keep saying, for as much as this is about Black people, it's really not. This is not about us. This is about you. This is about white people going bonkers, where this seems okay. And then I was like, why would the directors want to put us on alert? We're everywhere and nowhere. You always have them. What are you talking about?
But what is that about, Dr. Chantella? Because I couldn't get it. I thought, okay, where's the link? It looks like witchcraft to me. Like going to the bedroom, you leave your pee, and then you take the lipstick, and then you leave some hair, and then wipe some things off and then touch the painting. It was like, witchcraft? What is this? I didn't get it.
You know what? I can't account for white foolishness. I can't. I don't know what that was. And it looked, it did have the markings of, witchcraft or something. But again, again, there's certain things that automatically make you stop and take pause.
Mm-hmm.
I travel a lot. And when I did, I often travel by myself. But I have a checklist. So you can pop up into that room and think you're leaving your hair if you want to. You will be sorry. And so it's just one of those things where, again, the things that we would do generally as Black people to protect ourselves that we've had to do from landing foot on soil to the present. Mm-hmm. It was absent in this woman the same way it was absent in Homeboy from Get Out. It was just like, you're not connecting the dots yourself. And so if it was supposed to be a message to us, pay attention, okay, but then pay attention to what? We're everywhere and nowhere. No, I don't know what that means.
You know what when I at the end of this movie, I thought, okay, what I have seen now is like white people trying to hang and maintain you have to be scared of us because we are everywhere. Even though you're, this is a new age, right. This is the being more, how you say it, spiritual, conscious. Yeah, mm-hmm. We mm-hmm. can build like a slave, like something like a slave dungeon of a slave plantation right mm-hmm. in front of your nose, and you wouldn't know. Like the Wizard of Oz kind of thing. Like you have to be scared.
Well, and right? This is the thing. If there are all types of things that happen in front of us that we just don't see. Right. And I think that there are times when we almost program our minds not to see certain things because, again, once you see them, you're responsible for trying to fix them. All right. Mm-hmm. You can't unsee certain things. Mm-hmm. And so I get it. My problem, I think, with this film is that it stops right where you really need it to make sense. And so it's like, okay, well, what happened to the people? And, you're left to kind of draw your own conclusions to this. There's no time frame. How long was this woman missing? Okay. Who was looking for? Because apparently you're picking some really well-known Black people. The husband and wife, they were both famed professors. Right. Okay. So it's like, you know, you have all these people who are missing, but these are people who someone would be looking for.
Yeah,
And
high
so this
profile
isn't
people. Yeah,
right. This
because,
isn't
because the guy that this got murdered, he was a professor.
right. And
Mm.
his wife, the woman that was killed when the film first started, that was his
Oh,
wife.
that was his wife.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
Right. So
was his
that's
wife
why
as
they were
well.
taunting
yeah,
him.
yeah.
Right. He was trying to protect her, and that's why they had to put
Put this thing on, yeah.
reins on him. And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, they kill her, but then they send him and tell him to clean out the ash pit,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that his wife's body was what he would be cleaning out, and her cross was the only thing that was still left there. So, you know, he's, you know, wrenching his own clothes at that point because he realizes that his wife is gone. But these are highly successful people who someone would be looking for and saying, the last time I saw them was in Louisiana.
Mhm.
Okay. So if everyone's missing in Louisiana, that's what I
Yeah,
said, nothing, right.
right,
The
right.
No,
dot
but that's yeah.
kind of fell
This
apart.
exactly when I realized that it was the present, I was like, huh? I mean, never in this lifetime would this couldn't happen. Never. Like I know this is that's why I said a Wizard of Oz thing because this is so. I don't know if the Wizard of Oz. I think even the Wizard of Oz has some more, um, you know,
I think they're
pressure
trying to make
or
it symbolic. It's
yeah,
supposed to be
symbolic.
like
Yeah, it's
symbolic, you know?
like somebody who that's like the GVS, the great white, the big yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Like
Your,
the
your Oz is, you
yeah.
know, your, the
like the
whole thing
global
is,
white like there is a global white supremacy where we should pay
right.
attention to and believe in, and it's like but still it's like so flat, like you said, like
At
flat.
this
It's
point,
not.
it's almost as if the pendulum has swung too far
Mhm.
in one direction or another. And so I understand, again, if the focus of this film had really been on the white people, just, you know, you're getting glimpses of them in certain spaces, but it's like, okay, how did they craft this? What was going on, you know, in their own minds and own psyches? And again, we have people that do Civil War reenactment. And we have a whole group of Black people because they were Black soldiers, you know, with Civil War reenactment. So in DC, the
Mhm.
African American Civil War Museum is here. It's vibrant, it's thriving. One of the gentlemen there, I love him dearly. His name is Marquette Milton. And he dresses up in the Civil War brigade garments that the formerly enslaved or enslaved who had escaped and actually fought in the battles. And he does the demonstrations about how they, you know, use their guns and da da da. So it's like, okay, I get it, and I love that. So it's not, you know, unfathomable that, you know, off in Virginia or West Virginia, where they're still doing these reenactments, that back up in those woods somewhere, something could not take place like this. I get it. But you need to tell me something more than having this function based around the Black people. All right. Because it's about the Black people, but it's really not. It's really
Yeah.
just like the Civil War was about the Black people, the enslavement, but it was
Mhm.
about more than that.
It
You know,
was
it was about whiteness.
white.
You know, it was about how this stuff fits into identity formation, the nation itself, the economy of the nation, voting within the nation. You know, you have to describe a Black person as 3/5 a
Yeah,
person.
of a person,
All
yeah.
right. So
Mhm.
you're count. So all of this, Black people have always been integral to everything that's going on, even if they're beside the point. You got
Yeah.
me? So you're developing laws to either keep Black people in their place, to determine citizenship rights for the planters, the white people who own the slaves,
Mhm.
taxes and all of this because of the slaves,
Right.
shipyards and you know, import exports because of the slaves,
Right.
different laws about, you know, running away and armies and the military and all of this to keep slaves in place. So
Your
they're
place. Yeah.
right, they're intricate, they're central to all of this, but then they become beside the point because technically they're the chattel and they're not supposed to talk,
Right.
and they're
Right.
not supposed,
And
right, they're not supposed to
it's
talk.
still going. It's still, they're not supposed to talk. It's still happening because if you look at certain laws, for instance, banks that are making sure that when they're trying to not give people mortgages or giving them loans for houses, so to keep them out of the loop of, creating wealth for themselves and their families. These are things that are happening or have been happening until not too long ago. So
Happening.
even if you see that the moment that Black people have been creating wealth for themselves, like in Rosewood and places like that, they get destroyed. So it's something that's still happening. And I mean, even here in Europe, we were just talking about how, uh, for instance, England and the Netherlands, they had been paying the owners of the enslaved like for 300 guilders for every person. And it's so horrible that we as Africans here in the Netherlands, we're still paying tax money to compensate those owners
To
until like
compensate the enslavers. Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
I think the last money was settled in like 2016. So we've been paying them as well. So all of these laws
Mhm.
are created about us.
Right.
We're not the subject,
Hey,
but it's
Mm.
about us.
Right.
And
Right.
I have to say that the movie, you said something about the women, and something that really caught my eye, that when they were all sitting in this big tent,
Yeah.
remember that?
Mhm.
These two women, this woman and another fancy looking lady, were walking at the same time when this guy is trying to talk to this girl,
Mhm.
and they're just passing. And I'm like, yeah, that's like the regular role that these women have been playing all these years when they knew their so-called very honest and loyal husband, was running down and raping our Black sisters over there,
Right.
and that was a very, for me, that was a very, it really struck a chord, because I always talk about my great grandmother. She was a little girl when she had like two children out of the owner of the plantation that she was on,
Mm.
and she actually met my mother and told her that she would love to see her children because the two children that she had with the owner were taken away. She never saw them again. So this is something that she was always talking about, telling my grandmother that she would love to see her children. She hoped to see them before she died, but she never did.
Wow.
So these women walking there said to me like, okay, so this was what happened.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Even the role that's passed on to the Black man as being a rolling stone, Papa was a rolling stone, you know, it's always on us. But
Right.
if you listen to the Dutch word that we have, buitenvrouw. It's a Dutch word. It's a word that was created by the Dutch plantation owners. We didn't create that word. They did,
Mhm.
because
mm,
what they would do, they would have the plantation, except, mostly in the capital city, and they would have buitenvrouw buiten means outside, and vrouw is
Women.
woman. So
Wow.
they have an outside woman, and they most of the time had like a little yard for the woman outside of where they were living. So they would go there outside to their outside women and come back home. And
Wow.
these are things that
mm,
we know. I mean, if we look at the Suriname history, for instance, one of them, the infamous women in Suriname during slavery was this woman called Susanna Duplessis, very, very ugly, evil woman,
Mm.
and in the oral tradition that we had, I think she died like in the 18th century, and people still talking about her.
Wow.
It's so crazy that her grave is in the one of the churches in Suriname. It has been struck by lightning. I don't have to go nowhere.
Yeah. But
I
that
don't have to go
church,
nowhere. It
yeah,
has it has been struck by lightning and it is broken in two big pieces. Can you believe that?
yes, her
Can
grave
you
has
believe
been,
that?
yes.
I
Oh,
mean,
Oh my
yeah,
God.
was
But
it
just
by lightning? Her grave,
by
because
lightning. Yeah,
in the church,
inside
they
the
are,
church.
yeah, they buried in the church.
Yeah,
And her, this is a real story because I've
it's
been
a
there.
wow.
real story.
And
Just
her
like,
grave is like, cut, the stone
In
is,
two. Yeah,
yeah,
struck by lightning.
struck
yeah.
by lightning,
Wow.
man.
Okay.
It's a
Hey.
I'm
real
telling you,
story. This
man.
Well,
is,
just and again, and I think that that's the it goes back to the fact that right now across the globe, things are breaking open. Like,
Yeah,
mm-hmm,
just all over. So you have these different African nations demanding that, the items that was graved, grave robbers that came through and stole stuff and put it into museums. We want our stuff back. Okay.
yeah,
yeah,
You're
yeah.
at a point now where you've had a black American president. All right. So
Mhm.
the capacity, the lies that have been told about black people not having the capacity, the capability, the wherewithal, the intellect, the morality, all of these things in order to lead, to rule, to manage, to govern, they were all lies. And it's understood globally now that that wasn't true. So
Right,
all of a sudden, it's like there's a reckoning. And it's one of those things where it's like, someone's trying to hold on to the lies,
right.
and so the whole thing is like you can't hold on to this stuff because you have more social media, people are talking, they're talking, and so that constant thing of felt, shh, don't talk
Yeah,
unless a white person is telling you, ask you something specific, and then you better know how to answer them properly, or there's
yeah.
another issue. So like I said, there are a
Hmm.
lot of themes that are going on within that space. But also, Sister Benji, the point with white women kind of being taken out of the conversation, being protected from the ridicule and the
Right.
scrutiny, that has also ended. All right. So there are a lot of new books that have just come out. One of them is called She is the Slave Owner. All right. And
Mhm.
it talks about these black women. I'll get the actual title for you and I'll put it in the notes. But it's talking about how white women have always been primed from the time they were little girls. So to see the little girl in this film being a part of the process, all right, I don't want to hear about, the fabled, this romanticized foolishness that we go through with movies about enslavement, where we show some white woman all, gussied up and she's sitting on a porch drinking mint julep. That's bullshit right there. All right.
Right.
Just period at the end of that sentence. Bullshit. Okay.
Mhm.
The reality of it is white women have work to do as well. All right. And their biggest threat
What's the
was
black?
black women's bodies.
Right.
All right. Because not only was it the source of pleasure, but it was also the source of the economy. All right. Your labor and your laboring, you're out there picking, planting, or doing whatever, but you're also reproducing. So it's both types of labor. And so you can't damage me, but so much. At the same time, I'm your property, all of this, I'm reproducing for you.
Mhm.
But your father, your son, your
Mhm.
uncles, even
Everyone.
you have a
Yeah.
passion for me that you don't understand. All right.
Mhm.
There's a sexual piece and component to this, but there's also this thing where that white woman is picking up that black woman's lipstick and is like, you think you better
mm-hmm,
than me. And I can put on your lipstick. I can walk in your shoes. I can make him want me. I can make him see me as desirable and not just someone who's, over here to take up space for the sake of whiteness. Okay.
Mhm.
Because if that white woman was enough, as Rosa Parks was trying to make it clear, you would stay over there and give her as many babies as you possibly can to build your
Exactly.
nation. You
yeah,
wouldn't
Exactly.
come over here for any reason because I'm an animal and I'm inferior and I'm less than.
Yeah.
You definitely wouldn't want anything that you pride, meaning your genes, stuck up in me. All right. So
Right.
it's not logical. But again, when we're talking plantation logic and the fact that someone's trying to reproduce this in 2020, it's not necessarily comical, um, but it's questionable. It's just like someone needs to ask, where are white people's minds right now? what do you feel threatened by? And I don't want to hear about Trump and the election.
Mm-mm.
Trump just came up here. I'm not even dealing with him. He's almost beside the point. I'm talking about, right. This is a history that goes back long before this man ever came about.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So when people say, "Oh, he's a
It's
trigger," or "He's the catapult," no, he's not.
No, he's
All right.
not.
Because if he were acting strictly on his own, then people would go,
Wouldn't
"Oh,
be
he's
the
a lunatic,"
president.
and get him out of office. But
He
people are
wouldn't be the
supporting him.
president. Yeah, he
Right.
wouldn't be the president
He wouldn't be the
if it
president.
wasn't for his backing that he had.
Right.
And
the belief system is there. And so when you start thinking in terms of how this film is trying to position not blackness or enslavement, but whiteness and the need for having control over a space, that to me was more concerning, and it just didn't get fleshed out well enough or completely, to a point where, there were probably 10 scenes that could have been cut out of that film altogether, and you add the ones that I actually needed that told me, who was this white man when he wasn't in the Confederate gear? Okay. Who were these people that were, managing the space when they weren't on, in that space? You're showing me what the black people were doing. They're professionals, and who were the white people that were around them, where this was okay? Did their families know? All right. So what you just showed me was 3 generations: a father, his daughter, and a granddaughter that were actively trying to re-enslave black people.
Right.
But you didn't tell me anything else about them.
Can you explain to me the really last part of the movie? Is she what I didn't understand is that she was on a horse. There were people out there firing cannons and stuff like that. Was she riding to let me say the North soldiers, not the Confederate, but the other people,
What
the
it was?
Union. I think is it the Union or the Confederates?
Basically,
The
the union would be the North, basically. All
Okay,
right.
that's
So
what I mean.
right, you
Yeah.
started off as 13, and then you had the secession, and so the Confederacy are the ones who seceded and decided they were going to, they want to keep slavery. The Confederates want to keep slavery. So
yeah.
the issue is, again, here in this country, they still have people who want to reenact Civil War battles. And sometimes they're reenacting other battles. So the Revolutionary War, you have people that dress up in the period costumes, and they'll go out on the original battlefield, and they'll stand out there with the original rifles. They don't have anything in them, so they'll put fake bullets or something in it. But they're going to reenact the battles that took place on the ground. Now, just that is comical, because you do understand that the Confederacy lost. Okay, so but what you saw her riding through was these 2 groups of people engaging in just the spectacle, the fun fair.
Oh,
Okay. So right, so
Because
these 2 people are
I
pretending to
understand.
engage in battle. They're pretending to engage in battle. And
Okay.
she's coming from, so that's why I'm saying, if you have a battleground and you have reenactors at a certain point, and they have the little cabins and the log, this, and it's an actual space, then the plantation that may have been nearby was still standing. All right. It doesn't mean that anybody was actually living in that plantation. Because you never see the inside of it. You see the women walking down the steps, and the little girl running across the land. Okay.
Right.
So the reality is, you may have had off away from the battlefield, maybe 2 or 3 miles down the road from the actual battlefield, where people were coming to watch the spectacle of this and the games that the people were playing.
Okay.
You have off back in the woods. So that's the whole thing of, even when the film is starting, that Black woman is running for her life. That teacher, that professor, she's running. If she can make it to that borderline up there,
right, she's free,
then she'll be back in reality. She'll be right back.
2020. Yeah.
So
yeah, because I didn't understand, because I'm like, okay, these people are shooting at each other. She's running away, obviously. So why don't they shoot her? But they were doing the how you call it again?
The pantomime, the reenactment.
The enactment. Yeah.
Right,
okay.
Right. So their bullets have they have no real firepower. They're just pretending.
Okay.
And what they would actually do is, they have like the logs from General Lee or
Yeah, yeah.
General
They
Davis, whatever. Right.
they do
And so,
things like that over here as well. Like
okay.
they will be doing like Waterloo, Napoleon, and stuff like that.
Right.
And you
Right.
got people from all over the world, and they walking around with the guns and everything. So
Right.
yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
But I think that because of course in America it has another label. Let I call it like that. Because I
Hmm.
mean Napoleon. Okay, yeah, we knew Napoleon. He fought against Haiti. He lost. Hello, you know. But
Right.
so that's why he actually sold the whole piece of Louisiana and all that. He sold it to the United States. I think the United States got it doubled in size because of that. And
Exactly.
there was a Dutch family behind the whole money. Can you
Hmm.
believe that?
What
Right.
what
Well,
Yeah,
Hope
you know,
family?
Hope,
What
Hope, Hope, the Hope family.
Hope?
Remember when we
That,
were talking about the diamond, the Hope
yeah,
diamond?
Hope
yeah.
Diamond. Hmm.
That's the family,
But
and they had
that's also the names of like Surinamese black people. Hope.
Hope. Yeah, but they like English Hope, Hope.
Hmm.
Oh, this is
Yeah,
HOP, not the H double O
Hope.
P.
Yeah, no.
The diamond is
But
HOP.
they probably own them.
Yeah,
They
that's
had
what
to
I think.
think of a
Yeah,
name or
exactly.
something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Um,
they brought up the money. They lent America the money to pay Napoleon for Louisiana because Louisiana is named after the King Louis. New
Hmm.
Orleans is named after Orléans.
Hmm.
oh,
They are French. They speak in French over there.
Yes.
Yes, they do.
Right.
yeah,
I mean, you would be amazed, I think, like I said, when you, as a lot of white people again, and I don't, I trying not to say white people in general, but again, as Black people are kind of gravitating towards their own history and uncovering different things, you
exactly.
can't separate the histories because they're intertwined in such a way where that you're going to keep having these things come up. As we used to have in the 1990s and early 2000s, whiteness studies,
Hmm.
because it was imperative that you start to unpack this stuff. But when you've omitted and erased so many things just because you didn't want Black people to seem like they were involved in it, it's craziness. So if we look at something as basic, and I'm talking about as basic as Jack Daniels liquor,
Oh yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
and then you find
Yeah.
out somebody goes and says, oh, wait a minute, there
Hmm.
was an African whose father was enslaved, who taught them how to do this brewing process
Hmm.
that distilled this liquor and made it what it was in the first place.
Yeah.
Okay. When someone pulled the information and then the company said, well, yes, that is true. And here's a photo of that enslaved person's son.
Really.
They decided, well, they paid homage to the man and his son. And so here's a picture of him sitting right in the middle of the distillery with us. So that this is where this came from. And they said, well, what we'll do is they created an entire line of the liquor just for him in his honor. And so, but it was like if someone hadn't asked and
They
pulled it
didn't
apart,
talk about it.
right? Why wouldn't
No.
you just why would you pull him out of that when the entire distilling process that you use that you still making money off of came from this African? Add him to the history so that someone doesn't have to poke you to make you tell it. And now that you've done it, it's like,
But
okay, you feel some type of way about it. Come
Yeah.
on.
this is what's going on. This has been going on all this time. I mean, if you look at I don't really get his name as quick as that, but is it Garrison? I don't remember. But this brother did a lot of he was an inventor and he invented a lot of things. I
Hmm.
think what he did is that he invented the third rail for the trains, for
Mm,
the subways all over the world. But he had to like spend all his money because he was brought to the courts. He had to prove that he actually invented
Wow.
stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
So it was an ongoing process. It was
Hmm.
never so that he could say, "All right, I invented all this. I got my money. I can just sit out and cool out,
Yeah.
and it's been going on. I mean, Louis Latimer,
Mhm.
who did invent like the filament for the lamp,
Right.
you know,
Right.
who is taking the honors. Oh, it's Edison. Edison
Right.
Edison
Right.
swindled him out of it. He swindled Tesla out of it.
Yeah.
So, hello,
Right.
so
Right.
Hello.
these have been happening a lot of times. I mean,
Yeah.
even I just found out that the spinning Jenny, which was um, a, a, um, 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 like something to make spinning go quicker. No, it was not the spinning Jenny. To clean out the cotton.
Okay.
They had to take out the seeds out of the cotton.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was a black man
Cotton gin.
invented that.
Yeah.
And but you're not gonna know his name because somebody else took the credit for it.
Absolutely.
You
And
Can,
it's
can
and so
I?
that's the important thing. It's like why take someone out if they were there? If it's all one nation and we're all working this together, then why
Mhm,
would you pull it out? When you pull it out and then someone comes in and says, okay, this is how it actually happened,
mhm,
Mm,
it disrupts this whole idea that you did it and you're super and da 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 da. And it's like,
right,
yes,
right.
we did this together. We were all in this together. We built this nation together in spite of all this other stuff that may have happened and that did happen. We were all in here and trying to go through an assimilation process of we are American as well. And
Mhm,
it's only, when you have a group of people who are constantly trying to say, okay, we're Americans, but we don't consider you to be really on our level of being American, or you're not
mhm,
quite as patriotic as we are. You don't get any more patriotic when someone is telling you you can't have it. You still fight to get it. You help
mhm.
them get their independence,
Absolutely.
even though you don't have your own independence within that space. You can't get more patriotic than that. And so it's like,
Mhm,
okay, why do I have to keep proving my citizenship? Why do I have to keep proving my worth to you when you keep moving the bar? You keep shifting it as
okay.
if you don't want me. The
yeah.
reality is, if I left here today or tomorrow, if Black folks just said, okay, that's right, you win, we
Mm.
out,
Mm,
you would
What a problem.
collapse. The
mhm.
What a
nation would
problem.
collapse. That's just what it is. The nation would collapse.
I
All
would
right.
like to say, while you were saying that, there was one sentence
I know
that I
what
would
you're going
repeat.
to
You know
say.
what I'm going to say? We are descendants of God.
Descendant of the
We
gods.
are
Mhm.
descendants of the gods. That's what
Absolutely.
he said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what Sister Benji said? You know what she said?
I think you know what I said.
Actually, because it's how you look at it.
Mhm.
It's a
Yeah.
projection.
Absolutely. And again, that's what I said. If it was just about I don't like you, I don't want to be around you, then that's fine. But you don't have to set traps for me. You don't have to make it difficult for me. You don't
Mhm.
have to harangue me or terrorize me because you don't particularly like me. And then you also have to ask yourself, why don't you like me? The reality is you are so focused on me that not only do you like me, but you love me. You are breathing me in. You are
Right.
taking me in constantly. And so it's like, okay. And we know this. And I think for a long time, we just kind of ignored it, or we were of the belief that, okay, they're around us. And again, they're co opting certain things and it's okay and da da da, but because they're making money off of it. But the reality is, if this man, I'm still back on this old white man that wanted Janelle Monae's character in the first place. In reality, that means somewhere back at your real house, you probably have a wife and some other kids and some other grandkids. You have a business or you work somewhere, whatever the case might be. You have neighbors, but you are putting everything that you have and everything that you are
Right.
into being in this space. And you've had your daughter go get you the woman that you want. For what purpose? What need is that
Having
woman
her,
that you pulled? Right. It's like, yeah,
having
I don't
her.
want to focus on the Black people in this film. I want to focus on the white people in this film. And so that's why I said it disrupts it for me to have this woman, get to the end of that break, and then you start to see this is the rest of reality around her and the people are coming to the reenactment and blah, blah, blah. But the film stops.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, nah, I don't need it to know, okay, yeah, they burnt up in the incinerator. Okay, yeah, all right, that's it. But that man still has a wife. And just like he said, if it's we're everywhere and nowhere, tell me where the rest of them are.
Mm-hmm.
That's more important to me. Tell me how these folks are functioning and what it means.
Do you know who produced the film and who wrote it? This was all questions and why.
Mhm.
They were like, okay, first thing actually is who did this? Who wrote this film? Or who directed it? Who produced it? Because it's such
Give me
a
one
weird
second.
film. Like, yeah. Um it looks like a fantasy more than
It was directed by Gerard Bush and Christopher Renz. I'm not particularly familiar with either of them. Beyond that, I'm trying to see if there's anything else that they've added to this post. Lionsgate put it out.
Yeah, Lionsgate.
Um, yeah, and it was produced by the same. It's the same producer who did Get Out and The Black Klansman.
Is it like
you
Jonathan?
see, and the Black Klansman, that is
Well, and you know, the Black Klansman, I think Spike Lee might have had a hand in part of the Black Klansman,
oh, but
but
that
that was
was
based on the real story. Yeah, the true
yeah.
story of the black guy that infiltrated the Klan and, um,
We saw that one too.
right.
Yes,
And
we did.
yeah,
Yes, we
yes.
did.
We saw that one too.
So
We
I
did.
think, yeah, you had asked a question about not necessarily a timeline, but other films
Mm-hmm.
that are about enslavement and just how they're placed at different points in
Inside,
history.
yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I would say probably we all know that the very first one is actually dealing with right after slavery, but The Birth of a Nation.
The Birth of a Nation from the
Oh,
KKK.
Right. So The
Yeah.
Birth of a Nation, I would definitely put in that space, even though technically slavery is over at that point. It kind of puts things into what they would consider to be perspective. And so again, time frame 1915. So you're still, decades away from the end of the Civil War. All right. So what's going on in 1915 that you would need a film like this? You have Black people gaining agency. You have Black people who are now trying to get involved in the war effort, First World War.
First World
You
War.
have
Yeah.
right. You have thriving Black businesses. So understand, even though places like Tulsa and Rosewood
Rosewood.
and other
Yeah.
places were torn down through white mob violence in the 19 teens, 18, 19, 20, and moving forward. They were thriving businesses and thriving neighborhoods and communities from
Mhm.
roughly the turn of the century moving forward. So they had maybe a 20, 30-year history, 40-year history before all of this happened. So when you look at The Birth of a Nation and its rise alongside the changes in mindset, for
Mhm.
me, again, is what does popular culture do?
Mhm.
What does seeing something like this do to your mind to make you think that you need to act or do something to engage or, disavow or break through the feelings that you may be having about Black people gaining access to your America? All right. The next film, even though I'm sure there were some others in there, Gone with the Wind. And even though
Yeah, Gone with the Wind. I've never seen that movie.
I saw that one.
You did?
And
I
technically,
saw
yeah,
that one.
it's not so much about enslavement as it is the white people that are the enslavers. And I think the only thing that really sets that film apart is that it talks about the Irish as slave owners and how there are distinct differences in whiteness.
Okay.
So the other white people in the South did not take kindly to having Irish,
Yeah.
as planters and having money. So you see a certain type of discrimination within whiteness itself. So that would probably be the only thing that made that memorable for me. Beyond that, Mandingo.
Mandingo, yeah.
And I think that was probably the most
Mandingo.
horrific but telling
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about graphic depictions of violence, I think
Yeah.
that was definitely one
That was
that did.
definitely one of them.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
definitely one that did.
But did you actually see Sankofa?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Because
Sankofa,
I was telling I that she really need to see that movie
right,
because that's really like one of my all-time greatest movies, and
right. And you know that
mm,
Mr. Garima is here in DC.
he is.
Yes, yes.
I've
Sankofa Books and Videos is uptown in DC. So he and the family are accessible, and they do a lot of community outreach. They work
we
with a
need to
lot of
get
great
them.
folks.
We need
Yeah,
to talk
yeah.
to them online and get him. No, definitely, because you see that movie. I mean, it doesn't matter how much times I see that movie. I'm crying my eyes out when I see that
Yes.
movie. It's
Right.
so touching. It's like the whole basic. This is what's happening right now, and this is the effects you see them today, right?
Yes.
And and what I also like is the way that he portrays the people from the different places that are
Mhm.
all in one community, and they're not even able to speak to each other, but they communicate on other levels.
Yep.
This
Yep.
one is from Jamaica, that one's from Ghana. I love that movie. Oh my God, it's such a beautiful movie.
And I'm glad you brought up Sankofa because I think that initially when I saw the previews for Antebellum, I thought that that's where they were going. You know,
Okay.
that whole thing of
Yeah,
you're in the
also the
present,
time,
right?
right?
That's what I thought. Okay,
Yeah.
we're about to revisit Sankofa and then, perhaps throw something else in here. But like I said, it went off in a different direction. It's like that's
Totally
fine because
different.
yeah, right.
Totally, totally
Right.
different.
It
Because
it didn't
I,
do
I,
that at
I'm,
all.
I challenge Hollywood today, make a film on that level. I'm gonna respect you,
Over.
because that movie right there, and
Yeah.
I mean the brother is from Ethiopia. Can you believe it?
Wow. And that's what I said. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And just the amazing way that, like you said, I don't care if you watched it when the film first came out or you're watching it today, it does something to you where it's just like, okay, this sister
Yeah,
once again thought that I'm right here, I'm living my dream, I'm in here, and it's that thing of your ancestors are listening, you know, you're still responsible. And some people say we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. The amount of freedom. And can you imagine them looking at us now? Like, okay, the fact that you can hold your own thoughts and then speak them, without repercussion.
right.
It's an amazing, it was a concept at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like the fact that we on here just gabbing it up, that's that's a
Yeah,
wildest dream. You know what I mean?
right, right.
Um, outside of that, I would say roots,
Is
again,
it
if you're
number
talking
four?
individual story. Say
Is it
again?
your number four route?
Yes. Yes, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
number
Right.
four route.
And again, there are other films that I'm sure have come out. I think Roots was extremely pivotal at the time because it was the first
Very
time,
important.
right?
Yeah.
This was shown on, I believe it
Anyway,
was ABC. It was right. And so
anywhere.
every
I saw it
person
on
in the
TV.
nation, right,
I saw it on TV as a little girl, and I'm like,
yeah,
I
right.
was totally shocked. You
Why
know,
why is it on your list again? Because I don't understand. Because Mandingo was
It's
fine.
well,
But
this is the thing with Roots. This was the first time that America actually decided to do a film that was done from the perspective of the African person who was enslaved and basically holding white people accountable for what happened. So even though now people would use that, they'll take whatever they felt was missing from Roots to create their own or add to it to, kind of pull the story apart. This was the first time that something like this was done in this country. And then it wasn't a film that was in the movies. This was something, this was a film that took 7 days. I think they did an entire 7 days every evening at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. You had ABC say, we're showing Roots, okay? And they showed it for that entire primetime span. So if it was 8 to 10 or 7 to 10, whatever it was, that's all that they were showing during that time frame. So it swept the Nielsen ratings. It was the first time that white people who did not necessarily know their own history, they had a chance to get a glimpse of what some of this was like.
yeah,
And so again, as brutal as we know things were, they could only show certain things on television at that point with the FCC regulations or whatever. But be clear, they showed enough to make the average white person who went to work each day after this programming came on to go in, apologetic or just saying, I didn't know. And in many instances, they did not know. And so it was kind of a reckoning point. I'm sorry,
So
Busy.
I'm thinking about that cartoon. You have this cartoon. There's a boxer in the box ring, and
Mm.
he's gonna box with this white guy, and his manager saying, "Oh my gosh, you're in big trouble." He's reading Roots, because the book from Alex Haley. So
Right.
so I know that even in the Netherlands, because it was it was a storm.
Right.
A lot of people became conscious, and of course even a lot of black people, when they saw it, they're like, okay, that happened, click, they closed it off. But it was a shock in the Netherlands as well.
Right.
I
And then
remember that.
you're also talking about, I think this may have been one of the only films that I've ever seen, even now, that starts in Africa.
Right.
Okay, so you get to see the fact that this man and his family, this young boy, this teenager trying to go through rites of passage. So technically, he would have been, what, 13, 14 years old, maybe at
Yeah.
that point. All right, so I love the fact that they chose LeVar Burton and he was technically a grown
Oh,
man. But
oh,
this would have been a 12, 13, 14-year-old boy,
mhm,
and they're showing him with his family. So you see that there's order, there's stability, there's
yeah,
family, there's
yeah.
faith, there are all of these different things. There's law and order in this
Order.
space,
Yeah.
and there are rites of passage, and these are
Uh-huh.
respectable, honorable people
Mhm.
who are kidnapped. He's kidnapping and put on the ship. So you get to see it from the beginning as opposed to just showing someone on a slave ship or on a plantation, and then the drudgery and the barbarity that comes with that.
Mhm.
So again, extremely pivotal with Roots. Beyond that, I think if I had to do a number 5, even though um, even though technically it's about the story within the story, I will never stop putting Django Unchained on any type of list that gets into this, because again, for my purposes, the eugenic scenes in there, and they're absolute, and they're talking about phrenology and this other stuff. You have to understand why Africans were being chosen, and when that's fleshed out the way it is in this film, even amid some of the foolishness that's there, it's like, okay, there are a number of things that come up with the black men that are wrestling with each other to the death. All right. The fact that if you read something like The Delectable Negro, you find out that these wrestling matches were usually full nude. And this was something for the homoeroticism, the homoerotic gaze of the white men that would have been filling that room at that point. Okay. So there's something hypersexual and hyper violent within that space, where the white men are standing back or sitting back drinking and watching these two black men, murder each other, or one trying to murder the other, one trying to protect himself, but they're fully naked. Okay. And so, it goes into this other thing of um, when we look at sports today, and you hear people saying, okay, boxing, what is this about? How many times you can punch a person in the face, and how you're landing punches and all of this. But initially, these were spaces where, again, black men are put in a space wearing very little to be barbaric and to fight with each other with white gaze on them. The gaze is on them fighting. So it looks like they're the ones being barbaric. But the reality is, it's the folks that have them.
People that's watching, yeah.
Right. It's
Because
right.
I watched this movie. I didn't see all of it. It was the movie with Chadwick Boseman doing James Brown. And
Mm.
I remember that I came, it was on TV, so I just saw the last part. But at a certain point, he was thinking back when he was a child, that they were children, and they had like numbers painted on them,
Mm-hmm.
and also something that looks like a box ring or something. And I'm like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And there's this posh people wearing all their beautiful clothes and drinking tea, and and there's these children, and they're like, I'm like, what?
And again, it's a
Absolutely.
it's a throwback. It's a throwback to, again, plantation games, the things that children usually were made to do for the entertainment of the folks that were there. And so one of the things that James Brown talked about this, there are a number of folks that talk about this. They put up a boxing ring sometimes in the middle of the county, little city space, and they would either have a mat that was electrified from the bottom, had a current going through it, and they would throw change in there. And so you tell these little kids, jump into the ropes and try and pick up the coins, and you're electrocuting them. It's almost like who can get down and get the most coins and get out, without getting electrocuted or whatever. Another was to have the kids in a boxing ring, and they would blindfold them, take their shirts off of them, blindfold them, put a number on them, and they just have to swing. And the people in the crowd are voting, right? The people are voting to see, or betting to see who will be the last kid standing. Okay. Again, those are all old plantation games. And so they kind of grew out of that into, turn of the century, just violating little kids who may have been hungry, needed money. And so you will give a silver dollar or, a quarter to the person who actually is the last one standing. Yeah. Outside of that, like I said, with Django, like I said, there were a lot of things in there that kind of give you a better insight into the plantation system as a whole, and why Black people were chosen, things like that. But I can't think of any other films right off. I know that like Amistad or 12 Years a Slave, all of those, they're there. But for me, I think a lot of times it was more about the stories that were kind of wrapped around them, the legal wronging that was going back and forth for Amistad. And then for 12 Years a Slave, this man trying to get out of the space that he's been pushed into once again. That's what I thought we may have been going into with this piece, with Antebellum. But again, it was just like, nah, it can't be in two different periods at the same time, unless there's some type of time travel or something else they've added as a component. So yeah, there may be others that folks might want to add to that list, but I would say those would be the 5 that right off the bat I think have been pivotal and demonstrative. Now, in addition, even though it's not set during an enslavement period, Daughters of the Dust is a film that every person needs to get a hold of, and just kind of pay attention to the fact that the culture that's there currently is still the culture that was there when the folks set foot, in this space. And so it very much needs to be identified and held on to.
Why I ask this question, so we can say that every now and again, period in time, a slave film is an answer to what's going on in the real world. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you say the birth of a nation, like Black entrepreneurs and communities was thriving, then you had Birth of a Nation. With Gone with the Wind, it was whiteness against whiteness to make it all.
Immigrant populations.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And with Mandingo, it was showing the violence of the Ma'ava, and then in Roots was from a Black perspective, and Django was about the plantation system and the eugenics, to understand that. So
right.
now we have a lot of slave movies going on. So in this era. So what is the for now?
I don't know that we've had.
Dr. Chantella.
Well, this is the thing. I would tell you, even though it's not a film, the TV series, and it just occurred to me, the TV series Underground is probably one of the best representations of dramatized enslavement that you would come across, because you start to see the agency and the humanity of the people who are enslaved. You also get to see these really weird dynamics that form within plantation systems. All right. And so you see a Black woman who has children with an enslaver, and how the children are not little anymore. They're grown, or they're of age. And so, you know, how this woman is trying to figure out how her children fit into this plantation system. And at the same time, you know, the children want to run. All right. And so what happens, Sister Benji, you know, we talk about this sometimes, and I can only go so far with these types of conversations, but when we talk about birthing processes and death processes on plantations, and we talk about the fact that the afterbirth is buried usually in that space, or when people have died years ago in ancient times, you didn't leave their bones or their, their bodies in spaces where they weren't supposed to be. So you would take them with you. All right. So I kept trying to explain to a number of folks, when people would say there's certain Black people that are enslaved that don't want to leave the space where they are. And I kept saying maybe for some of them it's that connection they have with what they've planted there. All right. They you know, they've planted the seeds of their own womb in this space. So it's like they can't necessarily leave this space that quickly or without forethought. You get me? And so I think that there's some connections to that. It's like it's not so easy. Just it's not like now when we say, okay, I'm prepared to leave, you know, my little bed and all this stuff behind and put my knapsack on and leave. If you've birthed stuff and planted it, and the ritual, the sacredness that you've made of this space, it means something. And so is that, could you speak to that just a little bit?
Well, I saw that, Sister. I was also smiling when we heard you say that, because in Suriname it's like this. If you're born somewhere, you're gonna bury your we say kumbate, your navel. When your navel drops off, that's where you're gonna bury that, under a tree, or so you're always connected. You were gonna get, when you're gonna get into a conversation with Suriname people. Yeah, no, my navel is buried here, so I'm from this place. So when you were saying that, I was also thinking about, um, if you're looking at when that in Suriname you have the Maroons who were fighting against the Dutch, and one of the um, main things they did when people got wounded, or when people died in the struggle, that they actually came back to pick up the people and bury them, at the right, in the right space, like you said. And there's a drawing, because this is something that is, yeah, it's very refined. It's very good that we have it. There's one of the soldiers that came with the Dutch army, and he made a lot of drawings. So this, we actually have a um, how can you say, visual source of how they were fighting. And you can see that at a certain point they reach a place where there are all these bones lying there. People, they actually cut off some people's heads and put them on sticks. And they're white people, because if they were Black, they would have come and picked them up and take them and bury them at their spaces where they would go, which would have been a sacred space for them. So a body, of course, a temple is a very, it's not only a physical, but it's also connected to a spiritual, and it's very important. So, I think that on the other hand, it's like you just said it, we are our ancestors, and it's connected to our instinct, it's connected to the world around us, and it goes way back. It goes all the way back to Kemet, so we are so connected to being in a spiritual place and dealing with our physical in a spiritual place, so all of this, this hypersexual, lazy, all the negative things that people are trying to label us with. We know who, if you know who you are, and if you know how connected we are to, to the spirit and to our instinct, it's not going to happen.
Not gonna happen.
Whatever. It's
Thank
not
you.
going to
Thank you.
happen.
Yeah.
I know.
We here,
Mm,
and actually we should say, like, how they do the time travel in the movie, and okay, so we go back 3.5 million years. Yeah, this is the first black woman that walked this earth, but we're in the 2020 now, but we got this whole DNA of all these ancestors that are here with us. So
Right.
this structure right here, this
mm.
temple, you know no, and it's so strange that you are saying this, because this is something that we do in Suriname. It
Right.
is.
Right. Right.
It
Well, see, and
is.
that's why I said it's amazing that diasporically, wherever we landed, we took with us
Right.
all of this, and
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah,
We kept it. We kept it.
right, and we kept it.
That is so, because I was talking to Sister I about this. We said, look, I said, you know what, the difference between, like, for instance, a lot of the places in the Caribbean and like Suriname, is that, we didn't get so much contact with white people as you people in America, because you
Mhm.
guys was, I don't like to say you guys.
Okay. It's
No,
okay.
no, 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 I don't like to say you guys, but anyways, you
Over
were
there.
living together with the white people.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
we in Suriname, we actually, there would be white people there, but they would be, for instance, um, administrating the plantations,
Okay.
because what actually happened is, like, in the 16th century, no, no, excuse me, in the 17th century, Suriname was actually not the first colony of the Dutch. The first colony of the Dutch was Brazil,
Mm.
because what happened is that they went up to, you must understand, you must place all of this in the historical background of the Dutch fighting against the Spaniards, the Spanish. Okay, because the Netherlands used to be part of the Spanish kingdom,
Hmm.
and then the whole um, religious thing happened, that the Dutch wanted to become a Protestant. Yeah, they wanted to follow Luther and everything. And
Right.
the Spanish king, of course, and this is also connected to the Moors, because everybody's talking about 1492. Sister, I tell the sister what happened in 1492. Yeah, 1492, Columbus discovered discovered America, but what one of the most important dates was is the 2nd of January, 1492. This is when the last Moors city fell to the Spanish.
Mm.
So the Spanish actually, what they did after that, they wanted to make the whole of Spain and Portugal had to be Catholic. Okay,
Okay.
so the Catholic faith was the one thing that was uniting Spain. So
Hmm.
when you now in the northeast, the northwest of Europe, you want to follow Luther, and you want to you want to attack the Catholic faith for talking about you doing your celibacy, but you got a whole heap of kids, telling people telling people that they're going to go to heaven if they're going to be paying you some money. You're going to
Okay.
give them a piece of paper. You see, you've been paying this, so you're not going to go to hell. You're going to go to the purgatory. You're going to stay there for like 1,000 years, and then you're going to go to heaven. Okay, so this was something that was, and what was another big thing is that a lot of people were irritated by the fact that if you go into a Catholic church, you're going to see there are statues everywhere. In the Bible says, you shall not, I said,
Any graven images.
graven image. So this
No
is what the
graven
people
images.
said. We don't want that. Okay.
Hmm.
So this is bringing a lot of problems. What they did in the Netherlands, 1566, that they went into the churches and tore down all the images, tore down, burned down, um, took down all the statues, just throw them down. And you must understand that in Spain, where the Catholic faith was um, the unifying factor,
Hmm.
okay, the Spanish king was like, are they out of their minds? I'm sending over, I'm sending over my whatever the biggest general to go over and just kick their ass. Are they crazy? So you must understand that was not it was not only that, but it was the foundation was that the Moors were there and the Moors created. It's something that I really we are going to have to find a way to make this whole, because this is the blackface that we're dealing with now.
Right.
They're making the Moors look stupid. They're making the Moors look silly. They're making the Moors
Mhm.
being dumb. But it's a projection,
Right.
because flipping the script, this is the Moors that stayed in Spain for about 1,200 years. No, let me see,
Definitely.
seven,
700, I thought.
yeah, 700 years, and created a glorious civilization.
Hmm.
Okay, when the king, the big emperor Charlemagne, yeah, who had like two or three-thirds, almost three-thirds of Europe, he couldn't write his own name. And what they did is that they went, they was taking, okay, what are these people doing over there? Oh, they write in Arabic. What we need to do, we need to establish uh, centers where we can translate what they're doing.
Hmm.
When they're talking about mathematics, when they're talking about medicine, when they're talking about astrology, astronomy, when they're talking about architecture, when they're talking about geography. Okay,
Hmm.
so you see, when they destroyed the Moors, 1492, is when Spain and Portugal became the strongest nations in the whole world at that time. Okay,
Right.
but the Dutch right there said, okay, you know what? We want a piece of that cake. Okay, this is what
I,
happened. So they fought against the Spanish, went took this one of the most important places in Brazil, Bahia, which is my love exactly. It was one of the most important sugar plantations areas. Okay, but Bahia didn't. Okay, they stayed there for like 1 year, and then the Portuguese kicked them out, and they went up, and
Hmm.
they had like who is like the biggest hero in Dutch history, Willem of Orange. The royal family is supposed to be his descendants. His cousin went to Brazil and stayed there for like 30 years or so, and made a lot of money, and built an enormous house here in The Hague.
mhm.
But at a certain point they lost, and now okay, the Dutch is out there like, okay, what we gonna do now? Yeah, and what they actually did when they had like New Amsterdam, which is New York right now, they
Hmm.
were fighting with the English, because even the English said, these Dutchies getting some of that, we want some too. So now the Dutch, because the at a certain point the Spanish and the Portuguese, they got sidelined by the Dutch and the English. Okay.
And I think that all of this, it works in tandem for, again, trying to understand how these plantation systems are set up. And I keep saying, if we look at something like antebellum
Mm-hmm.
now,
Mm-hmm.
there's also the understanding that globally this rise in white supremacist thought is happening in all of these other places at the exact same time. And so it's like you have to put the history lesson to it so that you understand it's all working in unison, you know. And I keep saying, even though we're in different places and we're speaking different languages, white supremacy is the same.
It's the same.
All right. It functions very much the same on all of these different platforms and all of these different areas. So it would behoove us at some point to get beyond the boundaries of language and geography and whatever other isms that there may be, so that you understand, you know, there's a wave that's being ridden right now. Someone is very, very fearful of who you are and what you're doing and what you're saying and how you're behaving. And you have to gird up yourself so that you're able to protect yourself first and foremost, but fight back when and if necessary, you know. So, you know, like I said, as we're gonna get ready to close this out, because we've been talking now, ladies, for 2 hours, and these hours have gone this is going by really, really quickly. I know.
I know.
I was just like, wait a minute, did I just say 4:57? So I know that folks still have other questions. You know, Thursday is another round of this. So if this conversation needs to continue at that point, you know, I think that if you have not seen the television series Underground, it's accessible. And I think it may be time to, again, talk a little bit more about these enslavement processes, or the films, the fact that we have so many films and documentaries and television series that are coming out. There's also a bit of a curiosity for me why, I'm a big fan of BritBox, which is British television, but it goes into Australia and all these other places. I am finding that 95% of the content are period pieces.
Okay, can you say the name again?
BritBox. The
BritBox.
British is like it's almost like saying HBO or show something, right? So it's something that deals with nothing but British television. You may, I don't think you would necessarily have it in Holland like that. It may just be the individual programming, or BBC may be active where you are. So you don't need it in over here. We just have all of them combined under one content maker. So it's BBC, ITV, any British television programming is usually under BritBox.
Okay, let me just add one movie, quick, because this is a movie that I've seen on Netflix, and it's called Siempre Bruya. It's a Spanish. It's from Colombia, and it's also about time traveling, about this sister. She's enslaved, but she's a witch. It's a very
I know
nice,
what you're talking about. Yeah.
I like it. It's a nice movie. It's a little bit puppy, if I could say it like that. But you know, especially the last season that I watched, because in the last movie, she gets you know, she brings her mother back from the past, and she's in love with this beautiful brother, and it's really nice. And I'm like, oh yeah, you know, because you're rooting for her and everything. But I do like the movie. I really like it, and I watched it like twice, and I like it because they speak in Spanish, and I noticed that I mean, I've been to some Spanish places, like the big difference between, for instance, if you go to Brazil, the people are very conscious about their Black culture, especially when you go to Bahia. And I noticed that when I went to the Dominican Republic, I'm like, really? So they like in the 70s, the way that I see it. Very, very Catholic, very Christian. Oh, this is the house where Christopher Columbus lived. Who the hell cares? And I like it because I said, I was in Cuba, and I said to a friend, you know, they have the house where Christopher Columbus lived, and they're really proud of it. And they're looking at me and said, but Christopher Columbus is un pendejo. You know, yeah, you know. So, but it's very nice. I think it's called in English, Always a Witch.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it's
Yep.
nice. I mean,
Okay.
it's funny. It's but it's I like it. It's
Okay.
so if you're on the lighter side and you see where the black woman wins, it's a
Yes.
nice movie to watch.
All right. We'll add that and we'll put everything, the resources in the comments as we close out. If you have additional comments, send them on over to Acumen Magazine 365 at Gmail. I will answer some of the questions that you may have had in the comments as I go through. And we'll see you again on Thursday. Sister Benji, Adanta,
Mwah.
always, I'm loving you.
Love
Let's
you
do this
back.
again. Feel
Love
free
you
to
back.
join me on Thursday, 3 o'clock my time. And we'll
Yeah.
pick this conversation up again because I think that, again, period pieces right now are extremely popular, but we need to dissect the history that's in them or we are terribly confused. So,
Yeah. I don't know if I can make it on Thursday because actually Thursday I'm going to school.
well, I love that. But I tell
Yeah.
you what, we may be able to get you to comment all the same. So we'll
Of
work it out one
course.
way or the
Of
other.
course.
All
Of
right.
course.
All right.
Yeah.
Goodbye, everybody. Hope you had a great time and hope to see you
Yeah.
again.
I do done.
All right.
Love up. Yeah.
Up.